So what we're going to look at this evening is exactly what we did last week, but we'll continue through to the end. The first 2 hours will be in relation to this route. The last half an hour will talk solely about the process of completing the actual practical test, because this isn't a practical test. This is a sort of vehicle that we use to practice your RT for everything that happens in the practical test happens in this route. So it's the opportunity to sort of practice the course. And I can't believe that tonight is the last week 5 of the RT course. When we started, the 6th of July seemed such a long way away. And I was worried that by now you'd be more interested in sitting out in the clear blue sky on a warm, sunny day with a cold glass of wine or beer by your sun lounger, and a look out the window, and the weather's probably worse than the first night that we started those 5 weeks ago. So I'm not quite sure what happened to summer there. So we'll have a run through of this tonight. Then, now the course is coming to the end, we move on to a more personal phase where we meet on a one-to-one basis via Zoom to run through this route a couple of times to give you some practice to do the practical test. You have to have completed the multiple choice exam before you can do the practical test. So my advice would be to get the multiple choice exam out of the way. The next phase would be the couple of hours on Zoom, one-to-one to build up your own personal radiotelephony skills. And then after that, come here again to Holmes Chapel to complete the practical test. And the practical test in total takes somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours. And I mean, that does sound like a long time, but a lot of it is administrative matters rather than you speaking on the RT. And I think your total speaking time probably comes to about 20 minutes in that hour and a half, or just slightly more. So let's start off by working our way through the route again. As I said, I think we'll start off in a reverse order, so reverse Christian name order. And I see Ian has emailed me to volunteer as well, so that's excellent. But if you excuse me a second, I'll just see where we fit him in the Christian name order. So we're going to start off with Steve, then Simon, Michael, Jen, Ian, David Jensen, Anthony, and Alan. So first of all, let's remind ourselves of the information that we've got. We're going to use, or rather during the practical test itself, you can use whatever call sign that you like. But so that we all use the same call sign, we're going to stick with Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, which of course abbreviates to Golf Charlie Delta. However, if you have to give your type during this this route, you can use whatever type works for you. Flexwing, Mike Light, C42, Auto Gyro, PA28, whatever you want. 90 knots, not that that makes any difference. We go from a fictitious place called Blackwood to destination Wesley. Our alternate is a place called Tidemouth. On board, we've got a single radio and a transponder that has no mode Charlie. And as I'm sure you well remember, Mode Charlie is the capability to display the aircraft's altitude. In this case, you haven't got it. So it just makes it that much more important to report any level changes that you might make because the controller can't see that on their radar screen. Pilot's qualifications, PPL, not that you need to know the legality of that. I think, as we said before, it's not an exam in air law or meteorology or navigation. It's an exam in speaking on the radio. Then we have your flight log, which you don't need to know too much about. It's just to sort of give you a sense of reality there. And finally, the frequencies. Now, I know the first week I sent you the frequencies for the practical, they were the old 25 kilohertz ones. So I'd like to ensure we stay fully up to date with 8.33. I think I sent these out last week, but if for any reason you didn't get them, I'm more than happy to let you know what the frequencies are as we go along. And then the route that we're flying is Blackwood down through the Banksfield military air traffic zone to our turning point of North Point, and then underneath the airway via North Point, Newton and South Head, to then join the Wesley control zone via the Whiskey Tango Yankee, which is just a notional point on controlled airspace boundary to land at Wesley. I know that normally you wouldn't land at an airfield inside controlled airspace, but we cover all options. Maybe one day you're coming back to your destination airfield and the weather's bad, or the runway's blocked and the other airfield's bad. And if you had to divert into a slightly bigger airfield, at least we've covered the procedures. So, sorry, the other thing to say is other things happen as we go along. Between Banksfield and North Point, we're going to hear a mayday call from another aircraft that there's no reply to. We're going to obtain a QTE from Tidemouth, somewhere between North Point and Newton. We're going to give a pan call after Newton, and then change to Wesley radar and come into Wesley via the Whiskey Tango Yankee. But we'll also look at what we would do if we went to an uncontrolled airfield instead, such as Tidemouth, which would be the equivalent of going into Slape, Welshpool, Tatum Hill, Barton, somewhere like that. And we'll look at the difference in procedures. So, as we said last week, these aren't procedures specific to a given airfield. These are just generic procedures for us to just get those skills and challenge and response in radio telephony, things that we have to read back, things that we can say will go to. I'm not saying that you have to use these procedures here or that you would use the procedures at any airfield. They're just there to practice our phraseology. So the people that are going to go first is Steve, Simon, Michael are the three people. So Steve is going to give us a radio check on Blackwood Tower. Simon is going to give the response of kind of your readability 5 also, Golf Charlie Delta. Michael is going to request the aerodrome information. Jen will read it back. Ian will request taxi. David will read back the taxi instructions. I've got a sneaky feeling that Anthony is going to be saying Wilco, which sounds like an easy life. And you tend to find that the person who gets the first Wilco ends up with Wilco all the way through. So I wonder if Anthony has picked a pole position there really on the grid. And then Alan after that saying that we're ready for departure. So let's start off with Steve. Steve, if you'd be so kind to unmute, and in case you haven't got it, the frequency for Blackwood Tower is 120.105.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Blackwood Tower, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, radio check on 120.105.
100%, Steve. 100%. Well done. That's perfect. And so, Simon, they come back and say, a Golf Charlie Delta, Blackwood Tower, your readability 5. And then you say what readability they are to you.
Your readability 5, also Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta.
Perfect. Perfect. So that's the radio check done. So the next thing, Michael, is to request the aerodrome information just by putting your abbreviated call sign at the start there, please. You're still on mute, Michael, by the way. Michael. Oh, there we go. Perfect.
Find the right button, that's what it is. Have we been abbreviated by?
We have, yes. So we're abbreviated. So you just add your abbreviated call sign to the start of number 2, please.
Golf Charlie Delta, request aerodrome information.
Good, excellent.
Charlie Delta.
Just the once. Don't get carried away. So the call sign, just the once in the call, please. So Jen, they come back and say, Golf Charlie Delta, it's runway 27, surface wind 2607 knots, QNH 1012, QFE 1009. So what would you say in response there? And you're just on mute, Jen, by the way. And you're still on mute. Oh, there we go. Perfect.
Yep. Golf Charlie Delta, runway 27, QNH 1012, QFE 1009.
Perfect. And Jen, quite rightly, didn't read back the wind because, as we know, wind is something that we don't read back, just the runway pressure settings. So perfect, Jen, thank you. So Ian, over to you if you'd care to unmute, or good timing, and request taxi, please, quite simply.
Golf Charlie Delta, request taxi.
Good, thank you, Ian. The next thing, David, is over to you, and they say, Golf Charlie Delta, taxi via taxiway Alpha to holding point Alpha 1.
Alpha to the Alpha 1 hold for Golf Charlie Delta.
Good. Next thing, over to you, Anthony. Golf Charlie Delta, report ready for departure. If you're there, it might be, I see you're unmuted, so it should work okay. So, well, yeah, just, you can just hear you, but that'll work. So they say, Golf Charlie Delta, report ready for departure.
Wilco, Golf Charlie Delta.
Very well said. All that effort just for one word, but excellent. So you do the power checks, you do the pre-takeoff checks, and Alan, when you're ready to go, what would you say, do you think?
Golf Charlie Delta, ready for departure, runway 27.
Perfect. Steve, it's back to you. And it's Golf Charlie Delta via Alpha 1, line up, runway 27.
via Alpha 1, line up, runway 27, Golf Charlie Delta.
Perfect. And an excellent call from Steve, because it's a runway instruction, so you have to read it back. You're responding straight back to air traffic, so you use call sign at the end. So perfect response. Simon, for you, they say Golf Charlie Delta, runway 27 clear for takeoff, surface wind 2605 knots.
Runway 27, taking off, Golf Charlie Delta.
Good. An interesting point in the, if we're flying out to Barton, if we're flying out to Sleip, if we're flying out to Welshpool, which is uncontrolled, we say that we're taking off. However, because here it's air traffic control, it's slightly different in that we're not saying what we're doing, we're reading back what we've been told. In this case, cleared for takeoff. So we read back cleared for takeoff. So actually, Simon, just to bring the point home, if we could just have it one more time. So they say Golf Charlie Delta, surface wind 2607 knots, runway 27, cleared for takeoff.
Runway 27, cleared for takeoff, Golf Charlie Delta.
Perfect, perfect. Off you go. Feel the phenomenal acceleration as you hurtle down the runway. Just get in the air. And then, Michael, they say to you, Golf Charlie Delta, report turning left.
Oh, cool. Golf Charlie Delta.
Perfect. And there's surprising how many Wilcos there are in this route, because anytime you hear the word report, it generally equals a Wilco. So imagine yourself climbing to a safe height, 500 feet, say, and you start the left turn to head round onto this track here. So when you imagine yourself turning left, Jen, what do you think you would say?
Golf Charlie Delta, turning left.
Exactly. Exactly. And don't try and add any extra words, just whatever, keep it as simple as possible. So that's perfect. And of course, it's a new sub-thread of RT there. So Jen quite correctly used the call sign at the start. So that's fantastic. So Ian, over to you. This is where they change you over to Blackwood approach. So they say, Golf Charlie Delta Roger, contact Blackwood approach 119.255. You're on mute. Oh, there we go. Great, Ian, thanks. So what would you say if they say, Golf Charlie Delta, contact Blackwood approach 119.255.
Golf Charlie Delta, Blackwood approach 119.255.
Perfect, perfect. And you see, of course, Ian's raised an interesting point there, because if you realise that you made this mistake when he said 118, he could have said the word correction. So he could say Blackwood approach 118, correction 119.255. So it's a good example there of when you would say the word correction. So next is you, David. So we change over to Blackwood approach, and then we have to introduce ourselves. So what would we say, David, do you think?
Blackwood approach, this is Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta.
And then it's you, Anthony. They say Golf Charlie Delta Blackwood approach. It's a basic service. Report maintaining altitude 2,000 feet.
Basic service, Wilco, Golf Charlie Delta.
Perfect, perfect, because we know that the air traffic service, we have to read back because it's a verbal contract between us and the controller or the FISO as to what service we're receiving. So that's why we read that back. But with regards to the 2,000 feet, they're not telling us to climb to 2,000 feet. They're just asking us to report when we get there. And that's why it equals a Wilco. So Alan, when you imagine getting up to 2,000 feet, what do you think you might say?
Blackwood approach, Golf Charlie Delta, leveling at 2,000 feet.
Good, good. You could leave out Blackwood approach because you're already on Blackwood approach's frequency. But if you said it, it's no great issue sort of thing. You certainly wouldn't want to say it every single time, but it doesn't say that you must omit the station's call sign, just that you can omit it once satisfactory communication has been established. So back to you, Steve, again, how quickly it comes round. But what they say to you is Golf Charlie Delta Roger, report leaving the frequency.
Report leaving frequency, Golf Charlie Delta.
Good, good. And Steve's is a good example that, again, we don't have to say Wilco. We've got the choice of either reading it back or saying Wilco. And as I think I said previously, some airlines don't allow their pilots to say Wilco because how does the controller or the pilots know that they received the information correctly? So some airlines insist that pilots read things back rather than say Wilco. But Wilco is a great tool in the box just for keeping the call relatively short, which is what it's all about. So what are we going to do? Well, we're heading towards Banksfield radar, and we go back to this thinking 5 minutes ahead. We're still on Blackwood approach at the moment, but we think, well, when we change to Banksfield radar, they're going to say partial message. And I've said it so many times before, but this call is the most important call for me. So, sorry, I was just reading the question from Phil. This call is the most important call for me, in that as long as you don't have an emergency of any form, this is the longest call you'll give. And if you did a 100-mile length flight, maybe less than that, you probably give this partial message call 2, 3, 4 times. So it's a call that it's handy to get the swing off. And because of that, what I want to do is everyone who's volunteered to do the RT, there's, I think, 8 people, each one, I'd like you to actually do the partial message call just so that you can get into the sort of swing of it. But first of all, Simon is going to say that we're changing to Banksfield radar 118.730. So let me just get that frequency up on the screen. So it's Banksfield radar 118.730. And don't forget, the worst thing you can do if you want clearance through some sort of airspace, the worst thing you can do is call the guy radio rather than radar. Exercise caution with that, because you're calling the person who's probably had about 3 years training, someone who's had about 3 minutes training and can only read off the runway use and pressure settings and aircraft that they see. If you call someone radio, don't expect a clearance through the maps or clearance through controlled airspace or whether they'll even talk to you again. It's the worst thing you can call someone who's actually radar. So Simon, if you could say that we're changing to Banksfield radar on 118.730.
Changing to Banksfield radar 118.730 Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta.
Now, great call, great call. However, you use your call sign at the end. And in fact, we haven't been, this is the a new sort of sub-thread. So you're initiated the call here to say that we're changing back to radar. You're not responding straight back to air traffic. So what you would do because of that is use your call sign at the start. So just one more time, please, Simon.
Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta. Changing to Banksfield radar 118.730.
Perfect, perfect. Golf Charlie Delta, Roger. So Michael is going to call up and establish communication and say, Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta. And then Jenny's going to do the partial message call, followed by Ian, followed by David, followed by Anthony, and all 8 of you. So remember, the items required for a partial message call is this: call sign type, departure point, which we know is Blackwood, destination Wesley, position, well, it's whatever you want the position to be. But remember, it's a distance, a compass point from a known position. You could be 7 miles southwest of Blackwood. You could be 15 miles northwest of Banksfield, 40 miles northwest of North Point. It's entirely your choice. So I'll leave that up to you. Probably everyone might give a slightly different position. Your level, which will say 2,000 feet, and any additional details. And it could be that you're squawking 7,000, or it could be that you're routing via North Point. We don't have to request max penetration again because Simon or whoever it was said it on first contact. So, in fact, no, I think it's Michael to do it. Sorry. So, Michael is going to call up and request max penetration by saying their call sign, Banksfield radar, our call sign, and request max penetration. But remember, we don't want to dive straight in without thinking, first of all, what the partial message is going to be. So, Michael, before you do it, let's give everyone 30 seconds just to have a think about what call they're going to give. So just, I think the word is stand by. 1 second. So I'll just let people have a think. I'm still, whilst people are thinking, I'm just sort of looking at Phil's message. Would the station ask you to report leaving a service? They might, and to answer Phil's question there, they might ask you to report leaving the frequency, and that will occur further down this route. They can't tell you to change frequency if you're flying in uncontrolled in Class G airspace, because you can do whatever you like. You can change frequency, you can stay on that frequency, you can turn left, you can climb up, descend down, you can do whatever you like because you're in uncontrolled airspace. But if the controller feels that there's a more appropriate frequency, they might kind of hint that to you by saying, a Golf Charlie Delta, report leaving the frequency, which kind of means there's someone more appropriate to talk to now rather than me. So I think that's given every, partial message.
Just a question. We're contacting Banksfield radar now.
That's right.
Okay, so would you say Banksfield radar, your full call sign, and ask for Matt's transit? Or would you just their call sign, your call sign, and wait for them to say pass the message?
Now, and that's a very good point, Steve. The accepted way to do it now is to say their call sign, your call sign, and what you want to get out of the conversation. So in this case, it's request max penetration. If you're just flying along and you want to talk to somebody, you might request basic service. So it might be Shelby Radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta request basic service. Or Shelby Radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta request max penetration. Or if you're going into an airfield, for example, like Slape, you would call them up and say, Slape Radio, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, request join. Or if you're going across Liverpool Radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, request zone transit. Or Barton, request air traffic zone transit or ATZ transit. So it's a really good question, because it used to be that you just gave their call sign, your call sign, and then you added what you wanted within the core. Whereas the way to do it now is to say what you want from this conversation on first contact. So an excellent question there. So Michael, I think we've given everybody enough time to think about partial message calls. So Michael, when you're ready, if you could say their call sign, Banksfield Radar, your full call sign and request max penetration.
Banksfield Radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, request max penetration.
Excellent. And they come back, Jen, and say, Golf Charlie Delta, Banksfield Radar, partial message.
Golf Charlie Delta, Microlight, departed Blackwood, en route North Point via Banksfield, currently 15 miles northwest Banksfield, 2,000 feet.
Excellent. The only thing is, when you gave your destination as North Point, which actually is just your next turning point. So your destination would be where you intend to land. So
I'd forgotten where I was landing.
Yeah, no, that's great. It happens to us all, Dan. Hopefully it doesn't happen to you as you're flying along. That would be a bit embarrassing.
I write it down.
That's great. Thanks, Jen. That's great. So Ian, if we could have yours, and then we'll have David, Anthony, Alan, Steve, Simon, and Michael. So Ian, if we could have your partial message call, please.
Yeah. Golf Charlie Delta, Sky Ranger Ninja, Blackwood to Wesley, 40 miles west of North Point, 2,000 feet, squawking 7,000.
Perfect. And David, over to you, please.
Golf Charlie Delta is a PA-28, operating Blackwood to Wesley, routing via North Point, currently 15 miles northwest of Banksfield, 2,000 feet, heading 110.
Great, apart from one, you don't give the heading. So it's superfluous information, so we don't give the heading. We used to give the heading in the old days, as they say, but the heading now is considered superfluous because we don't need the heading. And of course, it's not 15, David, but
1-5, of course.
1-5, exactly. And this is why I love people making mistakes like that, because everyone's learning from it. So that's great. Thanks, David. So over to you, Anthony, please. If you're there, Anthony.
Can you hear me now? I think I've got
a
bad connection to it. Can you hear me? Is that better?
Your readability 4.
Okay, Golf Charlie Delta, C42, Blackwood to Wesley, currently 25 miles west of North Point, 2,000 feet, QNH 1022.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you, Anthony. And Alan, over to you, please.
Golf Charlie Delta, C42, routing Blackwood to Wesley, 18 miles, correction, 18 miles northwest of Banksfield, 2,000 feet, routing via North Point.
Perfect, perfect. Well done, Ellen. Steve, over to you, please.
Golf Delta PA28 Blackwood Wesley, 15 miles northwest of Banksfield, 2,500 foot, QNH 1012, routing via North Point.
Great stuff. Thank you, Steve. Simon?
Golf Charlie Delta, PA28, Blackwood to Wesley, 5 miles southeast of Blackwood, QNH 2000, routing via North Point.
Cool. Great stuff. There was just around that level, 2,000. If you could just say 2,000 feet, you don't have to give the pressure setting. And people often, I mean, I notice a lot of people that give the pressure setting. There's actually no need, because once you establish communication and pass your message, the controller will give you their pressure setting. So it doesn't really matter what you're on. There's no harm in giving it, but there's no need to say 2,000 feet QNH 1022. That's great, Simon. Thank you. And finally, Mike, if you could give yours, please.
Okay. Golf Charlie Delta, PA28, departure from Blackwood and destination Wesley, position 15 miles northwest of Banksfield at 2,000 feet, squawking 7,000 direction.
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. Don't keep thinking, oh, I must give some more, I must give some more. Just give us, work on the art of giving as little as possible, rather than giving as much as possible to sort of cut it down. So that's great. I did hear was it a 15 or an 18? Of course, it wouldn't be a 15, 1.5, and that's why we're here. So that's great. I was also intrigued that you said you're a PA28 when I thought you were flying an auto gyro.
Everybody else has said PA28, so I'm just copying.
Well, I was worried that you might have some sort of gender identity.
You never know what I've got stored behind my garage.
Exactly. Well done. So we continue on through, and it's back to Jen. Jen, they will approve your transit through the mats. They won't clear you through the mats because it's not controlled airspace. So they'll say something to you like, Golf Charlie Delta, mats penetration approved, not above height 1,000, correction, not below height 1,500 feet on the QFE of 996 hectopascal.
QFE, sorry, correction, not below height 1,500 feet, QFE 996 hectopascals, Golf Charlie Delta. Good,
excellent. Although I'd probably also add at the start the mats penetration approved, just so that you've shown them that you know that you can fly through the mats. They're not just telling you to sort of go round, not below height 1,500 feet. But good breeder back, 1,500 feet, great, and the word hectopascals, so that's great. And Ian, they say to you, Golf Charlie Delta, that's correct. Report entering and report leaving the mats. You're on mute at the moment, Ian, if you're giving the call. Oh, there we go, great.
Yeah, I was. Wilco, Golf Charlie Delta.
Fantastic. All that effort just for saying Wilco. That's perfect. So, David, when you imagine yourself entering the maths, what would you say?
Golf Charlie Delta entering maths.
Golf Charlie Delta, Roger. Anthony, when you imagine yourself leaving the maths, what would you say?
Golf Charlie Delta leaving the maths.
Great. Alan, Golf Charlie Delta, the Banksfield Q&H is 1012. Report pass in North Point.
Q&H 1012. Wilco, Charlie Delta.
Perfect. But of course, it's not Charlie Delta, but
Golf Charlie Delta.
good. Excellent. Excellent. So that's the maths penetration. Has anybody got any questions at all on the maths penetration, or in fact, anything that we've done so far? So what happens next is we hear a mayday from another aircraft that there's no reply to, and we'll have to relay it. And we relay it, using the phraseology here. Mayday, 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 Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta have intercepted mayday from, and everything that you managed to scribble down. So everyone's going to have a go at this. And what I don't want you to do, and I think we said this last week, is if you hear someone give you a different distance, or you didn't get the distance and you so you scribble it in someone else's, don't do that, because I just want to see sort of what information you generally get. And if you don't get all the information, what information is it that you do actually get? What is more memorable? So please, when you relay the mayday, just relay the mayday as you heard it. If everyone else gets a different call sign, don't worry about that. Just relay it as you heard the mayday. So let's go with a mayday call. So has everybody got a pen ready to scribble it down? Good. So you hear mayday, 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 Banksfield radar. This is Golf Alpha Tango Echo X-ray, PA-28, engine fire, force landing, position 20 miles south of Banksfield, passing 300 feet, heading 180 degrees, student pilot. So that's what you hear. And then, of course, you're thinking, oh, I'll just wait a sec, because surely the station will relay that mayday call. And then there's no reply. So you think, oh, crikey, I'm going to have to do this myself. Or maybe you wait to see if someone else will relay it instead. But you wait and wait and wait. And after a while, you think, well, I'm going to have to do this myself. So, Steve, it's over to you first, please, with the mayday, then Simon, Michael, Jen, Ian, etc. So, Steve, when you're ready, take it away.
Mayday, 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 Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta have intercepted mayday from Golf Alpha Tango X-ray, correction, Alpha Tango Echo X-ray, PA-28, engine fire, force landing, 20 miles south of Banksfield, passing 2,000 foot, PPL, student pilot.
Fantastic. Well done, Steve. I do like that correction. That was great. And it really makes it sound like, you know, even if you make a mistake, it sounds like you know what you're talking about by just throwing in that correction and the new version. So that was absolutely fantastic. Out of interest, in your very extensive amount of microlight flying, have you ever had an emergency at all?
No.
Fair enough. And touch wood. Long may it continue. Long may it continue.
Thank you.
No, I'm pleased to hear that. Simon, when you're ready, if you could pass your message with the Mayday call, please.
Mayday, 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 Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, intercepted Mayday call from Golf Alpha Tango Echo X-ray, PA-28, engine fire, forced landing, 20 miles south of Banksfield, 20 degrees, heading student pilot.
Perfect. That's great. That's great. Thank you, Simon. Michael, over to you, please, Captain.
Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Banksfield radar. Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta have intercepted Mayday from Golf Alpha Tango Golf Alpha Tango Echo X-ray PA-28 with engine fire, forced landing 20 miles south of Banksfield, 20 degrees, student pilot.
Fantastic. Now, I heard of 20 miles as well. So you had like double 20, 20 miles and 20 degrees. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I tell you, I'll never miss that. So, of course, 20 miles. I'm impressed how you got exactly the same degrees as Simon, which was, you know, not quite correct. What a coincidence. What a coincidence that was. It was 180 degrees, in fact. But no, it's funny what you hear. You always you put money on what you thought you'd hear, and yet it can be completely different. And that's why it's great to hear the different Mayday calls, just to prove how different people hear the Mayday calls. So that's really interesting. So, Jen, over to you, please.
Mayday, 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 Banksfield radar, Golf of Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta have intercepted Mayday from Golf Alpha Tango Echo X-ray, PA-28, engine fire, forced landing, 20 miles south of Banksfield, passing 300 feet, heading 180 degrees, student pilot.
Perfect. Nothing to say about that at all. Well done, Jen. Ian, over to you, please.
Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Banksfield radar. Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta have intercepted Mayday from Golf Alpha Tango Echo X-ray. I say again, Golf Alpha Tango Echo X-ray PA-28, engine fire, forced landing, 20 miles of South Bank, passing 3,000 feet, heading 180 degrees, student pilot.
Great stuff. Great stuff. As you notice, some people it's 300 feet, some people 3,000 feet. It's just you can only pass what you thought you heard. But if you weren't sure, if you were pretty sure what they gave, then just give it. It might be right, it might be wrong. But if you think, well, I'm not sure it was that, then don't give it, because otherwise you could be feeding them duff information. But that's great, Ian. Thank you. David, over to you.
Mayday, 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 Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo, Charlie Delta has intercepted Mayday from Golf Alpha Tango Echo X-ray, PA-28, engine fire, forced landing 20 miles south of Banksfield, passing 300 feet, heading 180, student pilot.
Perfect. That's great. Thanks, David. Anthony, over to you, please.
Mayday, 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 Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta have intercepted Mayday from Golf Alpha Tango Echo X-ray, PA-28, engine fire, forced landing, 20 miles south of Banksfield, passing 300 feet, heading 180, student pilot.
Perfect, perfect. That's great. And finally, Alan, saving the best to last. What's what have you got for us, please?
Mayday, 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 Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta have intercepted Mayday from Golf Alpha Tango Echo X-ray, PA28, engine fire, force landing 20 miles south of Banksfield, passing 300 feet, heading 180 degrees, student pilot.
Fantastic. Well caught on that 20 miles. That's excellent. Well done to everyone there. And in the radiotelephony practical test, you will have to relay a Mayday call. But as we said before, it's not critical that you get all the information. The important thing is to attempt to relay the information that you got. So after a while, the aircraft actually manages to extinguish their engine fire and decides to continue on to Blackwood. But because they heard you relay the Mayday call to the ground station, they call you to relay the cancellation as well to the ground station. So they might call you up, and Steve, you'll be the first one. They might say, Golf Charlie Delta, this is Golf Echo X-ray, cancel Mayday. I say again, cancel Mayday, engine fire extinguished, continuing to Blackwood. So they've said cancel Mayday, that the engine fire is extinguished and they're continuing to Blackwood. Now there's phraseology for relaying a Mayday, there's phraseology for cancelling a Mayday, but there's no phraseology in CAT 413 for relaying a cancelled Mayday. So we cobble it together by leaving out the Mayday, 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 and just say Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta have intercepted cancel Mayday from, and then what's happened and what they're going to do. So Steve, what would you say?
Just to confirm one thing, where was he continuing to? Blackwood?
Blackwood, yes, well done,
Okay.
Steve, Blackwood.
Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta have intercepted cancelled Mayday from Alpha Tango Echo X-ray, reported engine fire extinguished, continuing to Blackwood.
That's great. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Steve. Over to you, please, Simon.
Okay. Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta have intercepted cancel Mayday from Golf Alpha Tango Echo X-ray. Engine fire extinguished, continuing to Blackwood.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Thank you. And on to you, please, Michael.
Blackwood radar, Golf Alpha.
Sorry to interrupt, Michael. It's Banksfield radar. So
Sorry.
kick off Banksfield radar.
Cancel that message.
I think the word you're looking for there to dig in your
Disregard.
hole a bit deeper. Disregard, exactly. Disregard.
Yeah. Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta have intercepted Mayday from Golf Alpha Tango Echo X-ray. Engine fire extinguished, continuing on to Blackwood.
Exactly. Just watch. I mean, that was great, but just watch that you said have intercepted Mayday rather than have intercepted cancel Mayday. Just so that there's no confusion, because they might think Mayday. Is there another Mayday sort of thing? So, but no, that's great. Thank you, Michael. So on to you, please, Jen.
Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta have intercepted cancel Mayday from Golf Alpha Tango Echo X-ray. Engine fire extinguished, continuing Blackwood.
Great, well done, Jen. That's fantastic. Ian, please.
Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta have intercepted cancelled Mayday from Golf Alpha Tango Echo X-ray. Engine fire extinguished, continuing route to Blackwood.
That's great. Well done, Ian. Well done. That's great. Over to you, David.
Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, has intercepted cancel Mayday from Golf Alpha Tango Echo X-ray. Fire extinguished, continuing to Blackwood.
Great. Thank you, David. That was good. Anthony, over to you.
Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta have intercepted cancelled Mayday from Golf Alpha Tango Echo X-ray. Reported engine fire is extinguished and they're continuing to Blackwood.
Fantastic. Well done, Anthony. And finally, Alan, we'll have yours, please.
Banksfield radar, Golf Charlie Delta, have intercepted cancel Mayday from Golf Alpha Tango Echo X-ray. Engine fire extinguished, continuing to Blackwood.
Perfect. Well done, guys. That's all excellent. Really good. And remember, of course, one of these will come up in the exam. So it's great to have had the practice and we've done a bit of tweaking. And as we go through this, it just starts sounding better and better. So I'm really pleased. So that's great. Steve, it comes back to you. They say, Golf Charlie Delta, understand, cancel, correction, understand Golf Echo X-ray has cancelled Mayday, report passing North Point.
Report passing North Point, Golf Charlie Delta.
Good, good. Now we come back to what? Jen, now here's a good question from Jen in the chat. Are we allowed prompt cards in the exam? There's two answers to this question. Number one is you're not allowed any prompt cards in the preparation phase, and we'll talk more about this at the end, but you will be given an aid memoir. And in the aid memoir, it gives the items for a Mayday or a Pampankle, but it doesn't give the phraseology for the relay Mayday. However, you have 20 minutes preparation time, and anything that you scribble out in that 20 minutes, excuse me, you can use in the speaking part. So although you can't bring prompt cards in with you, you can effectively create some prompt cards in the preparation time that you've got to use in the exam. So a great question there. So it's Simon's turn next, and he says with enthusiasm, and we're going to look at that. Do you remember that position reporting that we talked about last time?
Yeah.
Where you say the position and the time, and remember you can make up any time. Let me type it in here, because if you remember, and when I say you, I mean everyone on the course. So it's position, time, level, next position, and estimated time of arrival. So based on that, Simon, there'll be another one at North Point, there'll be another one at Southhead. So there'll be the opportunity for other people to give this position report as well. So based on that, Simon, how would you give a position report at North Point with your next estimate being Newton? Newton is the
Okay.
place.
Golf Charlie Delta, passing North Point, 5'8", flight level 35, Newton 12.
Not 12, but you were so close there. I was going to
1, 2.
say exactly. And this is why we're here. This is the time to make mistakes, and that's great. And everyone else learns from each person's mistake. So that's great. In fact, it's so good, Simon. Let's just have it one more time so you do get that.
Okay.
1, 2, please.
Golf Charlie Delta, passing North Point, 5'8", flight level 35, Newton 1, 2.
Perfect. 100% perfect. Thank you.
Can I ask
Golf
a quick
Charlie,
question, please, Can I ask
Golf
a quick
Charlie,
question, please, Kevin?
you certainly can.
If we when it's jumped up an hour onto the next hour, do you have to put the hour in, or do you just do the minutes? Does that matter at all?
You
Have you gone
only
round to
have to
60?
give you only have to give the hour if there's any confusion. Now, you would argue, I think we would argue, that if you gave the timer, say, 5:05, and the next time you give is 08, there's no confusion, because it's just purely that you've naturally gone over that 60. So the answer is no, you don't have to give the hour if you've gone over the hour. However, if you think there's the possibility of confusion, and it might not be an estimate you're giving, it would be an estimate. It might be that Southampton call you and say, oh, Dairy House Farm have been on the phone, and they're asking you what time you intend landing there. Well, who knows whether it's going to take you 40 minutes, an hour and 40 minutes, or 2 hours and 40 minutes, depending on what type of microlight you're flying. So therefore, then you would give 4 digits, as in an hour and a minute sort of thing. So it's just purely based on if you think that there's the possibility of confusion. So great question. You happy with the answer?
Yeah, thank you.
Good. So, that was Simon. So, Michael, they say to you, Golf Charlie Delta Roger, report passing Newton.
Golf Charlie Delta, report passing Newton.
That's it. No, that's it. That's all you say. Or you could just say, Wilco, Golf Charlie Delta. But what you need to do is pull the reins back on your radio telephony horse to stop you saying any more than you need to say. Just keep it to the bare minimum. So you'd either say report passing Newton Golf Charlie Delta, or you could say Wilco Golf Charlie Delta. Nothing more than that. So great. Thanks, Michael. So the next thing that we're going to do now is we're going to change frequency to tight mouth information on 126.005 to obtain a QTE. So Jen is going to say that we're changing to tight mouth information 126.005 for a few minutes. Banksfield Radar will probably say, Roger, report back on frequency, to which Ian will say, Wilco. Then David will go in with the request for a QTE. And remember, you don't need to establish communication or anything. You just go straight in with that, because they don't need any details about you. All they need is for you to transmit. So therefore, we don't need to establish communication first. We can just go straight in with this call. And as we said, it's the only call where you give your call sign twice in the same call. So that'll be David's job. The next person, Anthony, will read back the QTE, and then Alan will say that we're changing back to Banksfield Radar, and Steve will re-establish communication on frequency. So, Jen, if you could say that we're changing to timeout information for a few minutes, please.
Golf Charlie Delta, changing frequency, Tidemouth 126.005.
Good. And I mean, whether you say it's just, if you said for a few minutes, it implies that you're coming back on the frequency. You certainly don't have to. So no, that's great. Thanks, Jen. So Golf Charlie Delta, Roger, report back on frequency. So Ian, what would you say if they just said to you, Golf Charlie Delta, Roger, report back on frequency?
Wilco, Golf Charlie Delta.
Very well said. Very well said. David, over to you to request the QTE.
Tidemouth, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, request QTE, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta.
Excellent. And Anthony, they come back and say, Golf Charlie Delta, timeout information, your QTE is 294 degrees.
QTE 294 degrees, Golf Charlie Delta.
Excellent, excellent. And then, Alan, if you could say that we're changing back to Banksfield radar and what the frequency is.
Golf Charlie Delta, changing back to Banksfield radar, 118.730.
Golf Charlie Delta, Roger. Great stuff. And Steve, if you could say that we're back, let them know that it's re-established communication, let them know we're back on frequency.
Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, back on frequency.
Golf Charlie Delta, Banksfield radar, and this one's for you, Simon. Golf Charlie Delta, Banksfield radar, the QNH is 1012, report passing Newton.
QNH 1012 Wilco. Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta.
Great stuff. Great stuff. So that's great. Any questions so far, guys? We're coming through this quite nicely. We'll be taking a break in 10 minutes' time. But has anybody got any questions? Wait, just in case you're thinking of a question. Paul asked on the chat, is it not safer or easier just to say the hour all the time? Yeah, no problem at all. If you want to say the hour every time, no problem. It's just in a way, just slightly easier to just give the minutes, just say 1, 2 rather than 1, 4, 1, 2. But there's certainly no harm in giving 4 digits rather than 2 for the time each time. So you can certainly say that, Paul. So any other questions? No? Good, right? Well, we'll continue on. So it falls upon Michael to give us the position report at Newton. Now, the next position is South Head. So remember, Michael, it's position and time, then your level, followed by your next position and time. And you'll be pleased to hear, guys, this is one of the items on the aid memoir. So it actually does say position and time, level, next position and time. So Michael, when you're ready, take it away.
You are asking me things.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm gonna keep a pressure on you. I'm
That's
just worried
okay.
that you,
I'm working on it.
that you think this is far too easy. But let me type this just down here, just so that you can remember what it is. So it's position and the time that you passed it, your level, and next position. Remember, next position is South Head. So,
Okay. Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta. Passing Newton at 12 at level. Correction, flight level 35. Next position. Newton.
South Head it is.
South Head, correction, South Head, 2-1.
Fantastic. Apart from Newton at 12, and of course it's not 12, but 1, 2. I know you did that on purpose to see if I spotted and to give us to sort it out, but just so that I know that it's been fully erased, if we could just have that position report one more time, please, Mike.
Okay. Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, passing Newton 1-2, level 3-5. Next position South Head 2-1.
Good, excellent, well done, Michael. Jen. Golf Charlie Delta, Roger, report pass in South Head.
Golf Charlie Delta, Wilco.
Very well said. Very well said. Now, unfortunately, before we get to Southhead, and this will probably be the last thing we do before we take a break, our engine starts to run a little bit rough. In fact, no. Why should I say what the issue is? What I'd like to do is all our heroic volunteers just give us a pan call. It could be sick passenger, it could be rough running engine, it could be anything you want it to be. So I'll be interested to hear what you've got to entertain me here. So the items required for a pan call is this. So use this. If you want to write it down, that's fine by me. If you think, well, I'll just work my way through, that's fine also. Most people like to give it a scribble. So, of course, it's pan, 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 pan. We know who we're talking to, Bankfield Radar. We know, hopefully, who we are, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta. Whatever type you want to be, whatever emergency you want to be, but remember it's a pan call rather than a mayday call. So it wouldn't be like aircraft plummeting to the ground, you know, engine fire, structural failure, because those would be mayday calls, and it's a pan call, something that doesn't require immediate assistance. Your intention, your position, probably in relation to Newton. And in this case, in the emergency call, we do give our heading. It might be heading 210 degrees. Pilot's qualifications, PPL, student pilot, again, whatever you want to be. And if you think there's any other useful information, feel free to give it. But if you don't think there's any other useful information, don't give it. So the order here is going to be Ian. Ian's going to be our pioneer here for the pan call, followed by David, followed by Anthony, Alan, Steve, Simon, Michael, and Jen. So Ian, when you're ready, take it away.
Thanks.
My pleasure. No need to thank me. I just assume that you...
No.
I assume your thanks.
Pan, 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 pan. Banksfield Radar, Golf Alpha Bravo, Charlie Delta, Sky Ranger Ninja, passenger sickness. Intent continue to Newton, position 5 miles south of Newton, heading 210 degrees, student pilot.
Fantastic. Well done, Ian. That was great. So a nice start for the first pan call. David, when you're ready, take it away.
Pan, 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 pan. Bankfield Radar, Golf Alpha Bravo, Charlie Delta. Engine misfire, unable to maintain altitude. Possible forced landing. 5 miles southwest of Newton, heading 210 PPL.
Super duper. That's great. Thank you. Anthony, over to you.
Pan, 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 pan. Banksfield Radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, C42 with a sick passenger. Intend to return to Blackwood. Currently 15 miles south of Newton. 1,500 feet, heading 090 PPL.
Again, a fantastic pan call, Anthony. That's great. Cheers. Alan, over to you, please.
Pan, 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 pan. Banksfield Radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, C42. Sick passenger. Intended to continue. Currently 5 miles south of Newton. Heading 210, flight level 35.
Cool. I think just the heading and the level were slightly wrong way around there. But other than that, fantastic. I've got no problems with that at all. That's great. Thank you, Alan. Steve, over to you. And then it's Simon, then Michael, and then Jen. So Steve, when you're ready, take it away.
Pan, 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 pan. Banksfield Radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, PA28, engine running rough, monitoring performance, 5 miles southwest Newton, 1,500 foot, heading 220 degrees, PPL, squawking 7,000 to PLB.
Fantastic. Well done, Steve. That's great. Simon.
Pan, 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 Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, PA38, passenger throwing up, possible diversion required, passing Newton, 210 degrees, 2,500 QNH, student pilot.
Fantastic. That's great. Thank you, Simon. And I don't know, I certainly have sympathy for the pilot, for the passenger throwing up, because I've had a few of my students that are throwing up, and on a hot summer's day, it's actually quite hard to concentrate on flying the plane. I mean, it's almost like a mayday call, because, you know, as soon as they've thrown up and the stench and everything, and half of it's on you anyway, that you feel like throwing up as well. So, you know, it's not a very nice experience. I'd say it's definitely a pack call, because it can really affect you flying the aircraft. And goodness knows what happens in a full face helmet for someone flying a flex wing like that. I wouldn't even want to consider it, but I think it's certainly a prime reason for a pan call. But Michael, over to you, please, sir.
Pan, 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 pan. Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, auto gyro, experiencing extreme heavy rain taking on water. Continuing flight to Southhead, 5 nautical miles northeast of Southhead, flight level 35, heading 100, student pilot, squawk 7,000.
Fantastic. Is it your tears that are filling up the aircraft there? It's I'm very, very impressed. I'm pleased that you've gone back to your true identity as well of auto gyro. So no, very good, Michael. Well done. Said with feeling as well. So real. So that's great. Thanks, Michael. Over to you, please, Jen.
Pan, 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 pan. Blackwood radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, Sky Ranger, caffeine level approaching 0, intention precautionary landing. 5 miles southwest Newton, heading 190, NPPLM.
Fantastic. And again, a definite reason for a pan call. Slate would probably be a good definition. Good place to divert with a strong coffee there and a nice, they do a big slice of cake as well. So that would get you back in, get your blood sugar and caffeine levels back up. So that's great. Thank you, Jen. Now, because you gave what you gave, I now want you to unwind it by cancelling it. So somehow, whatever you gave, you now need to cancel. So I'd like you just to have a think about it. Then obviously, Ian is going to go first, and just station's call sign, Banksfield radar, your call sign, cancel pan pan. What's happened? I'll be interested to see what Jen comes up with there, and Michael as well in his flooded aircraft. And what your intentions are. Well, your intentions are just probably now continuing to Wesley. But Ian, when you're happy with that, take it away, please.
Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, cancel pan pan, passenger no longer feeling sick, continuing to Wesley.
Fantastic. Well done, Ian. That's great. David, over to you.
Banksfield radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, cancel pan pan, engine misfire rectified, climbing back to flight level 35, heading 210 to Southhead, I'm not buying any more cheap MOGAS off that farmer.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Good, a bit of additional information there. That's great. Thanks, David. Over to you, Anthony.
Banksfield Radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, cancel Pan. Sick passenger is feeling a lot better. Continuing to Wesley.
Perfect. Thanks, Anthony. Over to you, Alan.
Banksfield Radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, cancel Pan. Passenger recovered, continuing to Wesley.
Great. Perfect. Thank you, Alan. And back to you, Steve, please.
Banksfield Radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, cancel Pan. Engine now running okay, continuing to Wesley.
That's great. Perfect. Thanks, Steve. Simon, yours, please.
Banksfield Radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, cancel Pan. Passenger mop themselves up, continuing to Wesley.
Fantastic. Yeah. Why do it yourself? Just give a bits of rag to the passengers, sort themselves out. He who's sick has to clear the plane out. I'm sure that must be a rule somewhere in the air navigation order. Over to you, Michael, please.
Banksfield Radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, cancel Pan. I've found umbrella, intention to continue on to Southhead.
Fantastic. Well done, Michael. Great recovery. And finally, Jen, if you'd be so kind.
Banksfield Radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, cancel Pan. Have found a coffee cream down the back of the seat. Continuing Wesley.
Fantastic. Well done, Jen. Well done. And over to you, Ian. Golf Charlie Delta, understand, cancel Pan. That's understood. Report leaving the frequency.
Wilco, Golf Charlie Delta.
Very well said, Ian. And on that note, let's take a break. Let's take a break until 20 to 9. And then we'll have about 35 minutes left of our tea. And then the final 15 minutes, I'll explain how the practical test works. So I know that you'll be straight in the kitchen now. Open the bottle of wine to lubricate those vocal cords, or an emergency supply of beer or whatever, but you've earned it. You've earned it. Some great RT there, and it just sounds better and better as we go along. So you're doing a great job. So let's take a break, and I'll see you back here in 15 minutes at time 40, of course. Yep, time 40. See you shortly. So what we're going to do now, in fact, the thing I should say is you've all very ably demonstrated the longest calls in the practical test, which are the relay, mayday, the plan call, and your pass, and the partial message call. And everyone's had a go at all of those. So what we'll do now is we won't have any multiple sort of calls. We'll just work through and everyone gets the luck of the draw. So we're going to continue through to Wesley. Then we're going to head up to Tidemouth. And then for the last 15 minutes, we're going to have a look at how we go about doing the practical test. So I can't remember who we finished on last time. That's no problem, because we'll start with Steve, because if in doubt, start with Steve. So the next call was report leaving the frequency. And I think someone asking, perhaps Phil asked the question earlier on, would a station ask you to report leaving the frequency? And the answer is, if that station thought that there was a more appropriate frequency, you should be talking to. They can't tell you to leave the frequency because you're flying outside controlled airspace. And if I was flying around outside controlled airspace, I would always try to talk to radar frequencies, as I'm sure I've said before, because it means that they can see you on radar and they can see other aircraft on radar and warn you accordingly. So radar frequencies work for me. We're talking to Banksfield radar at the moment, but what other radar call signs have we got available to us? And we look down our frequency list and we see that as well as Banksfield radar, we have Wesley radar. In fact, those are the only two frequencies, radar frequencies we have on our frequency chart. People say to me, well, when should I change between the two? And the answer is when you're halfway between the two. So I guess in our case, the halfway point is probably the southern bank of this estuary, where most aircraft up here are talking to Banksfield radar. Most aircraft down here are talking to Wesley radar. So that's why they might say to us, report leaving the frequency. It's the fact that they know that we're past the halfway point in relation to Wesley. So let's go back to the original chart.
Sorry, Kevin, are you after me now?
Oh, yes, yeah, your turn will come, Steve, in a minute. Yep, sorry, not quite, but very close. So they say to us, report leaving the frequency, and we say, we'll go. So, Steve, we're going to want to change to Wesley radar on 122.330. There's nothing stopping us changing because we're outside controlled airspace. So what would we say to say that we're changing to Wesley radar?
Okay, so I'm already on Banksfield radar.
We are, yes.
So I would go Golf Charlie Delta, changing to Wesley radar on 122.330.
Golf Charlie Delta, Roger. Great, well done, Steve. That's perfect. So what's going to happen now is that Simon is going to establish communication with Wesley radar. And remember that, excuse me, remember that, what are we going to request? Well, we could request basic service, or we could request join. And join is a general term as to, in our case here, join controlled airspace to land at Wesley. Whenever you're inbound to an airfield and you call up on that airfield's frequency, a good thing to say on first contact is whoever you're talking to, say, for example, Slate Radio, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, request join. And that implies, tell me how I land at your airfield. Or in our case with Wesley, it means tell me how I come into your airspace to land at your airfield. So that's a term that you could use when you're inbound to an airfield, request join. But another option is just request basic service. So I'll leave that up to Simon. But then it'll fall upon Michael to give the partial message call. And we're always thinking ahead 5 minutes. So we want to give Michael a bit of time to think, well, our call sign, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta or Golf Charlie Delta, I'll type whatever Michael gives. Obviously, we're out of Blackwood. We're inbound to Wesley. Our position in relation to South Head there, our level, 2,000 feet, flight level 35, whatever level you want to be. And if you think there's any additional details, feel free to give it. But if not, then don't give it. So Before Simon establishes communication, I'll just check with Michael. Michael, you feel that you're ready to give a partial message call?
Yeah, crack on, let's do it.
Right then, Simon. So when you're ready, if you could establish communication with Wesley Radar, please.
Wesley Radar, Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, request basic service.
Good, excellent. A Golf Charlie Delta, Wesley Radar, pass your message. So over to you, Michael.
Golf Charlie Delta, Auto Gyro, departure from Blackwood to Wesley, 3 miles southeast of South Head, flight level 30, request basic service.
Good, excellent. Well done, Michael. Well done. Next one's yours, Jen. A Golf Charlie Delta, Squawk 3615, and report passing South Head. You're on mute at the moment, Jen, if...
Golf Charlie Delta, request repeat.
Oh, yes. So now there's a good point. Of course, it's not request repeat. Let's put it out to the floor. What would it be, guys? Any volunteers? Say again. Exactly.
Say again.
And don't hesitate to use that in the exam, because you're using standard phraseology to recover from a problem. So it's, but make sure when you do say again that you give your call sign as well, because any aircraft on the frequency could say, was that called for me? Say again, when in fact it wasn't actually meant for that aircraft. So it's always Golf Charlie Delta, say again. So for you, Jen, Golf Charlie Delta, Squawk 3612, and report passing South Head.
Golf Charlie Delta, Squawk 3612, Wilco.
Perfect, perfect. So you fly along. When you get to South Head, it's over to Ian for a position report at South Head. And remember, it's position and time, your level, and then your next position and time. And it's called the Whiskey Tango Yankee. And believe me, you'll need your teeth in for this, because it's a bit of a sort of tongue twister, and you'll see exactly what I mean in a minute. Although maybe Ian's got this sort of wrapped up, the Whiskey Tango Yankee. So it's position and time, level, next position and time. So when you're ready, Ian, take it away. And just let you know, Ian, you're on mute at the moment.
Try again. Okay. Wesley Radar, 8 miles.
Sorry, but before you continue on, you gave their call sign, but not your call sign. So I think you probably meant to say Golf Charlie Delta at the start. And it's just that you're passing South Head, and the time that you passed it, your level, and then your next estimate, which is the Whiskey Tango Yankee, and a time.
Okay, let's try again.
28.
Golf Charlie Delta, passing South Head, 58, 3,500 feet. Whiskey Tango Yankee, 15.
Well done. And not just well done for the RT, but well done for saying Whiskey Tango Yankee. So that's great. Golf Charlie Delta, Roger. Report approaching the Whiskey Tango Yankee. In fact, David, sorry, I'll give you a little bit more. A Golf Charlie Delta, it's a basic service. The Wesley QNH is 1012, and report approaching the Whiskey Tango Yankee. And you're on mute, David, at the moment.
I am, but I hadn't even realised it was me.
So it was Golf Charlie Delta. It's a
yes,
basic service. The QNH
yes.
1012 and report approaching the Whiskey Tango Yankee.
Basic service, QNH 1012 Wilco Golf Charlie Delta. Sorry about
Perfect. No, it was quite all right. Quite all right. In a way, it's just like flying along sometimes. So we become distracted. So that's great. So we're flying along, and we've been in the air now. What's time? Almost 2 hours. So there's no ATIS at Wesley. So what's the word starts with R for can you give me the Wesley weather? So starts with R, request Wesley weather. So that's going to be Anthony to request the Wesley weather. And then they're going to give you a whole tractor, runway, wind, visibility, cloud, QNH, QFE, and you think, oh, crikey. I mean, this is Alan. Alan thinks, cool, crikey. But of course, the only thing that you have to read back is the runway and the pressure settings. You don't read back the rest of the weather. So that'll fall on Alan. So Anthony, first of all, if you could request the weather for Wesley, please.
Golf Charlie Delta, request westerly weather.
Golf Charlie Delta, the runway in use is runway 27, surface wind 26012 knots, visibility greater than 10 kilometers, cloud scattered 3,500 feet, QNH 1012, QFE 1007. So therefore, Alan, what do you think you'd say?
Runway 27, QNH 1012, QFE 1007, Golf Charlie Delta.
Perfect, absolutely perfect. And if you get loads of weather, it doesn't matter. You just listen to the weather because we can see the visibility is greater than 10 kilometers, so that's great. The clouds are at 3,500 feet, so that's great. The only thing that we have to read back, as Alan quite rightly did, is just the runway and the pressure settings. So that's perfect. And we think, oh yeah, that weather's okay for us. We'll continue into to Wesley. And I just need to find my
Quick
mouse.
question,
Yeah, far away, or pass your message, I should say.
On the pressure settings, is it actually any need to stipulate QNH, QFE, or can you just read back the numbers?
That's a very good question. And I think I would say the answer is you have to read back QNH, QFE, because despite us saying that the higher number is always a QNH, as long as the airfield's above sea level, it just clarifies that you're reading that you know which one's the QNH, which one's the QFE, rather than just reading back two values. So I would say yes, say the QNH, say the QFE. They might only give you one pressure setting, but you would still read back whether it was the QNH or QFE, because if you thought it was the other one, it would could make a massive difference to what level you think you are above sea level or above ground level, if you see what I mean. So, and that's a good example to say, yes, always read back QNH and QFE. So we're back to Steve now. Now, this is where we come into controlled airspace. And first of all, we report approaching the Whiskey Tango Yankee, because if we reported overhead the Whiskey Tango Yankee, 1 microsecond later, we'd be inside controlled airspace. without a clearance. So that's why they ask us to report approaching. So if they don't clear us in, we can orbit outside until they do clear us in. But if we reported overhead the Whiskey Tango Yankee and they didn't clear us in, we'd be inside controlled airspace without a clearance. So it's report approaching the Whiskey Tango Yankee. Someone's going to have a big call then. Simon, in fact. And the reason being is that when they clear us into controlled airspace, we have to read back where we're cleared from, where we're cleared to. And that proves that we know we can't come down over our auntie's house here and fly over there in Mount Wesley, because we've been cleared from the Whiskey Tango Yankee to Wesley. We also have to read back where we're cleared to, because sometimes they don't clear us all the way to the airfield initially. They might clear us to an intermediate point. And to know that we can't go any further, we have to read back that intermediate point. So if you were coming into the Manchester control zone via Holmes Chapel, to land at Manchester Airport, you'd have to have loads of money to land your microlight at Manchester Airport. But they might clear you not from Holmes Chapel to Manchester Airport, but from Holmes Chapel to Jodrell Bank initially. And that's why you read where you're cleared to back, to show that you know that you can only go as far as Jodrell Bank. And that's what's known as your clearance limit. You can't go past that point until you've been cleared past that point. In this case, they're going to clear you all the way to Wesley. And so they'll clear you from a Whiskey Tango Yankee to Wesley, not above, say, 2,000 feet on the QNH of 1012. And they'll just kind of stipulate that it's VFR as well. So, Simon, what they're going to say to you, and you have to read it back because it's a route clearance, is Golf Charlie Delta cleared from the Whiskey Tango Yankee to Wesley, not above altitude 2,000 feet on the QNH of 1012 VFR. And unfortunately, you have to read it all back. So, Simon, if you're happy, what would you say?
I would say Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, cleared from Whiskey Tango Yankee to Wesley, not above 2,000 feet, 1012 QNH VFR.
Perfect, and you'd be perfect. A Golf Charlie Delta, read back correct. Report when you have Wesley in correction. Report when you have Wesley in sight. So what would you say, Michael, if they said Golf Charlie Delta, if they said to you, Golf Charlie Delta, read back correct, report when you have Wesley in sight?
Good call, Golf Charlie Delta.
Easy, easy. Great stuff.
I'm not back there.
Yeah, exactly. So you're flying along to Wesley and you start thinking, oh, there it is in front of me. I can see it now. So, Jen, what would you say quite simply to say that you've got Wesley in sight?
Golf Charlie Delta, Wesley in sight.
And over to you, Ian. Golf Charlie Delta, Roger. Contact Wesley Tower, 119.565.
Golf Charlie Delta, contact tower 119.565.
Good. I'm probably with it being an exam, I quite like the fact of saying contact Wesley Tower to make it clear that it's Wesley Tower that you call in. And some radar units kind of look after 3 different airfields. So it's a good idea in that respect to say contact Wesley Tower rather than just contact Tower. But other than that, that was great. So we changed frequency to Wesley Tower. And David, we established communication on the Wesley Tower frequency, please.
Wesley Tower, this is Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta for joining instructions.
Golf Charlie Delta, Wesley Tower, report right base for runway 24. So what do you think you'd say, Anthony, if they say Golf Charlie Delta, report right base for runway 24?
You hear me?
Yep. Readability 5.
Yeah, I've got a really bad connection here. Wilco, Golf Charlie Delta.
So I think we know runways we have to read back. So I think I might either say Wilco, runway 24, Wilco, Golf Charlie Delta is probably the minimum. There would certainly be no harm to say we'll report right base for runway 24, but certainly the runway you've got to read back. So what are you going to go for, Anthony?
Runway 24, Wilco, Golf Charlie Delta.
Good. So what it's saying here, sorry, I'm just having a minor fight with my computer mouse here, so we should be in business shortly. So what they're saying is you can join runway 24 would be sort of in this direction, and you don't need to join downwind. You can join straight onto a right base for runway 24. So let me draw it. So it means that you can come over here if this is runway 24 here, and you can join straight onto base leg and then onto final. So your next call, Alan, is to say that you're on right base for runway 24.
Right base, Golf Charlie Delta.
And you're initiating the call there because we haven't spoken maybe for a couple of minutes. So you have to use your call sign at the start. And maybe I think just for clarity, I'd probably say right base for runway 2, Golf Charlie Delta, right base, runway 24.
Golf Charlie Delta, right base, runway 24.
Golf Charlie Delta, number 1, report final. So what would you say, Steve, reply to that?
Number 1, report final, Golf Charlie Delta.
Good. So you sort of start your descent, turn on to final. When you're on final approach, what would you say, Simon?
Golf Charlie Delta, reporting final.
Good. And in fact, I wouldn't even use that word reporting, because by saying it, you're obviously reporting it. So all it is just Golf Charlie Delta final, as opposed to reporting, because in a way you're obviously reporting it. So they say to you, Michael, Golf Charlie Delta, the surface wind 2604 knots, runway 24, cleared to land.
Runway 24, clear to land, Golf Charlie Delta.
Good. And Michael did exactly the right thing there, because he read back the clear to land. Now, you know, probably in some shape or form, if you're at Barton, you might say that you're landing. Or if you're at Dairy House Farm, you might say what you're doing. But here, they're giving you an instruction that you have to read back, which Michael quite correctly did. He read back runway 24, clear to land, Golf Charlie Delta. And Jen, they say Golf Charlie Delta, vacate the runway 2nd left, report runway vacated.
Golf Charlie Delta, vacate runway second left, report vacated.
Good, excellent. So you roll down the runway, take the second left. Remember, you're only vacated at a bigger airfield once you've passed the runway holding point. But when you are vacated, what would you say, Ian? You're on mute at the moment, by the way, Ian.
Sorry, my signal had completely dropped off, so I've missed the last 2 minutes. I've just had to.
Oh, what a pathetic excuse. So it's Golf Charlie Delta, vacate the runway second left, report runway vacated.
Golf Charlie Delta, report runway second left, and I'll be reporting when vacated.
In fact, actually, I'm talking rubbish there because Jen did that call. It's actually that you are vacated. So I'll continue with you, please, Alan, just to say that the fact that you have vacated runway 24. So it's just Golf Charlie Delta runway vacated. But if you could say that, please, Ian. Or have we lost it, Ian? I think we might. Oh, no, you're there, Ian. If you can hear me, if you can just report that you are runway vacated.
Golf Charlie Delta, runway vacated.
And then after that, it's David, Golf Charlie Delta, taxi to the general aviation apron and report parked.
Golf Charlie Delta Wilco.
Good. And in fact, it's a taxi instruction that you have to read back, because if it's air traffic control, taxi instructions you have to read back. So you can't just say Wilco there. Unfortunately, David, you have to read back taxi to the general aviation apron, Wilco. So therefore, what would you say, David, there? If they say Golf Charlie Delta, taxi to the general aviation apron, report parked.
I'd pretend I was American and say Roger.
Roger, yeah, wouldn't we all? And how typical that would be. That's exactly what they'd say. In fact, they wouldn't even just give their call sign. They'd just say Roger. But hey, you don't sound like an American, so we'll have it the British way.
Taxi to the general aviation apron, Golf Charlie Delta.
Good, good. And finally, the final call falls upon Anthony. So when you imagine that you're parked, quite simply, what would you say?
Golf Charlie Delta, parked.
Perfect, perfect. And in a way, that's so, I know that quite often you wouldn't say that you're parked, but in the practical test, we both need to know when you've said your final words. And some people, when they get to this point, they can't stop. And I say, right, that's great, thanks, we're finished. Golf Charlie Delta, Roger. And you say, no, we're finished, and take the headphones off. Golf Charlie Delta Wilco, and they just can't stop. So really, that parked is like a safety word. The pain is over. Once you've reported parked, that is the end of the exam. As I say, some people they can't stop. They just keep on going with RT. It's become ingrained within them. So once you report parked, that's the end of the practical test. So what we're going to do in 5 minutes is just work our way through to Tidemouth. You've done all your RT, you've been pleased to say, and you've done fantastic. And notice how the RT has improved significantly from when we started to when we finished. It's great. So what would happen if we got the weather for Wesley and it's 600 meters in fog? And we think, oh, that's no good. Well, there's no point in just diverting to Tidemouth, because we might get to Tidemouth and find that that's 600 meters in fog. So therefore, what we do is we ask Wesley for the Tidemouth weather. I mean, we could change to Tidemouth and get that weather, but since we're on the Wesley frequency, we'll get them to work for us, and we'll just say, Golf Charlie Delta, request Tidemouth weather. Because if you just said request the weather, they'll give you Wesley's weather. So you have to request the Tidemouth weather. Golf Charlie Delta request Tidemouth weather. And you'll be pleased to hear that if the weather is bad at your destination, it will be good at your diversion. You won't have to turn around all the way back via South Head and Newton and North Point through the mats to get back to Blackwood. It will be good at your diversion airfield. So based on that, you tell Wesley that you're changing frequency to Tidemouth. And we've only got one frequency there, Tidemouth information. And the fact that it's information makes us think, oh, it's not air traffic control, it's Aerodrome Flight Information Service. So it's going to be a standard overhead join. They're going to say to us, land at your discretion. So, you know, it's different to air traffic control. So we call up Tidemouth. Obviously, they're going to say pass your message because they don't know about us. We give our call sign, we give our type, we give our departure point. But of course now, Wesley isn't our destination. We now intend to land at Tidemouth. So our destination becomes Tidemouth. Golf Charlie Delta, C42 out to Blackwood, inbound to Tidemouth, position 25 miles southwest of Tidemouth at altitude 2,000 feet. And then in the additional details, I'd throw in diverting from Wesley due to bad weather. So because you haven't phoned up Tidemouth to get permission to go in there, so they'll be saying, whoa, who's this guy, sort of thing. By saying at the end, diverting from Wesley due to bad weather, it kind of unlocks the gates and allows you into Tidemouth without any sort of questioning. So, of course, it's an overhead joint. So we know that as well as saying that we're downwind and we're on final, we also say that we're descending dead side. Now, this guy at Tidemouth is grumpy old git sort of thing, and he doesn't sort of say much at all. He certainly doesn't give you any clues. So it's up to you to say that you're descending dead side. It's up to you to say that you're downwind. It's up to you to say that you're on final. He or she might give you a bit of traffic information, but they're not going to give you much more than that. And when we do the practical test on the map, we'll probably end up somewhere where it's up to you to say that you're descending dead side. They won't tell you to do it, and they can't tell you to do it. They won't ask you to do it. It'll be up to you to say you're descending dead side. It'll be up to you to say that you're downwind. It'll be up to you to say that you're on final. And of course, being Tidemouth information, they don't say clear to land, they say land at your discretion. We don't read it back because it's not an instruction. It's only runway instructions we have to read back. It's not an instruction, it's a land at your discretion. If we look in Cap 413, it says we should say Golf Charlie Delta Roger, meaning I have received that information. However, I quite like people to say that they're landing or they're going around, and say your intention, because it gives good situational awareness for other aircraft in the circuit ahead of you and behind you, so they know what you're doing. It's handy if an aircraft's on the runway to hear the one that's on very short final saying that they're going around, because otherwise I'd be concerned that they hadn't seen me and they're kind of going to land on top of me. It's also handy that if the aircraft on final says that it's landing, or that it's doing a touch and go, or that it's going around, because the aircraft behind then knows how soon or late to turn in behind. Because if they hear you say that you're landing, they know they need to give you a bit of time to touch down, come to a near stop, find a runway exit, and vacate the runway before they can land. So there's no point in turning it really tight behind. However, if you say that you're going to do a touch and go, they know that they can turn in a bit tighter, because you'll probably only be on the runway for about 5 seconds or so they can turn in quite tight behind. But if you say that you're going round and the aircraft's positioning behind, then you can turn in a lot tighter, because you're not even going to use the runway. So although the CAT 413 says just say Golf Charlie Delta Roger, or Roger Golf Charlie Delta, to respond to the land at your discretion, I personally like the landing Golf Charlie Delta or going around Golf Charlie Delta, so that everyone else in your vicinity knows exactly what you're up to. Dave sent a message to say, will they give you the runway news? And the answer is yes. After first contact with you, with your details, they'll just say, Golf Charlie Delta, it's runway 27, standard overhead join, right-hand circuit, QFE 1009. So they will give you the runway, the pressure settings, and the fact it's an overhead join. The rest is up to you. So good question there. So we'll leave it there from this practice point of view, because what we do now, once you've done the multiple choice, once you've passed the multiple choice exam, we'll meet for 2 hours to go through this route purely on a one-to-one basis. So you'll do every call, and we'll go through it twice. On the first occasion, we'll go to Wesley, and then we'll go right back to the very start. And on the second occasion, we'll go to Tidemouth. So that's 2 hours of you just doing the RT. Very little amount to my saying anything. So therefore, you can imagine the amount of RT. You'll get loads and loads of practice. And then after that, we'll meet to do the actual practical test. So the actual practical test. Now, I wrote this, it's somewhere down here today, so let's hope it works. The actual practical test, as I said, takes between 1.5 hours and 2 hours. And that's because there's a lot of administration. First of all, I'm going to send you, before you come to do the practical test, what's called the CAA Standard Candidate Brief. And this is it here. And it says that the FRTOL Practical Test is a test of communication skills using standard phraseology and procedures. Candidates are required to simulate flying the route indicated on the flight plan, transmitting all required radiotelephony calls on the appropriate frequencies. The candidate will expect to know when radio transmissions are to be made and understand the nature of the information passed, which is what we've done the last 2 evenings. The ability to interpret knowledge beyond that explained in CAT 413, and the communications element of the aeronautical information publication will not be assessed. So it's only stuff that we've done the last couple of weeks that you're going to be tested on. All the ancillary stuff is not expected to be known. Candidates are to note the following. The test shall be assessed in accordance with standard phraseology contained in CAP 413. And that's why we've looked at CAP 413 excerpts through the course. Stand by. The FRTOL examiner will, The FRTOL examiner will explain and demonstrate how to operate the testing platform. And what will be used is like a glorified intercom, where you'll sit in one room, I'll sit in another room. There'll be a box with a press to talk switch, and you'll have a pair of aviation headphones or headset, I should say. And we sit in separate rooms. And the only time we can hear each other is when you've got that button pressed down. So you can curse and swear as much as you like, as long as you haven't got that button pressed down. And the only person you'll embarrass is the cat. So you don't need to worry too much about that. So you're only assessed when you press the button. The rest of the time, I can't hear what you say. So the candidate will be allocated time to plot the test route on an aeronautical chart. Following a route brief by the examiner, the candidate is then allocated a further 20 minutes planning time to make notes for use in the test. So that goes back to Jen saying, can we take in a crib sort of notes? Well, you can't take them in, but you can make them in that 20 minutes planning time. And then also there'll be an 8 memoir. I'm going to jump through this because I've actually got this in a separate section in more detail. The examiner will play the role of VHGCS radio operator, Pfizer or Echo. They will respond to calls made to their station as if it was real flight. The test starts in accordance with the details contained in the route brief, which you'll see in a minute. At some stage during the test, the candidate will be made aware of an emergency situation. So there'll probably be a pan call and a relay mayday. And we'll talk about how you'll be made aware that those emergencies will commence. The test is carried out at the candidate's own pace. There's no requirement to wait the full time between transmissions. So it's entirely at your own pace, just like we've done today. So you've got thinking time within the test. You don't rush it, just take your time through the test. You've got loads of thinking time as you go along, just as if you were flying the actual route. But you don't have to wait the flight plan time for each leg. It's not in real time, it's at your own pace. However, the test must not take longer than the time stated on the route brief. And that's about an hour. And if it takes you more than an hour, I'll assume that you've gone home for a cup of coffee or something, because it should only probably take you about 20 minutes. You'll be provided a list of frequencies. I will show you that in a minute. So let's get to the next one. After the candidate has completed the flight test, the examiner will ask a number of additional questions. And we'll talk about questions that we've done through this course. Questions regarding the content of a test or what's required should be asked prior to the test commencing. So you can ask questions during the preparation phase, etc. Once you come to the speaking part, we just do the speaking. The examiner may interject at any time and reserves the right to terminate the test. I'm sure we won't have to do that. The practical test route and its associated documentation must not have been disclosed to candidate or training provider prior to the start of the test. More about that in a second. So I'll send you that by email. You can read that till your heart's content. So we review the candidate brief, which I'll email to you. We decide what CAA chart to use. Now, if you've got a map, a chart, bring it with you. If not, I've got loads of charts, and you can decide whether you want to fly a route to the north or a route to the south, and we'll use the appropriate map. You decide the map, I decide decide the route. More about that next time. We have to confirm that you've passed the multiple choice exam. Well, I've got the details if you pass it. So obviously, if you tell me you passed that, that's fine anyway. But it's just to really show that we can't do the practical test until you've passed the multiple choice exam. And we ensure this form, SIG 1171, has been completed. Now, I'll sign this, and this is a form to say that you've covered all the training syllabus. And by attending or listening to all 5 weeks of this course, I will be signing this form to say that you've been trained in all these procedures. So that's up to me to sign. On the day of the test, you need to bring either your passport or driving license with you, and we take a copy and authorize it as a true and accurate copy of the original, and then you send off that authorized copy with your license application. And this all sounds complicated, but don't worry, I'll sort all these things out for you. But I need you to bring your passport or driving license with you so I can take a color copy and so I can stamp it to say it's a true and accurate likeness. And then you send it off with your license application. Then we discuss the test route that you're going to fly, and you've got 5 minutes to draw it on the chart. And then we might decide, for example, this won't be the actual route, but we might decide that we're going to go from Blackpool up to Fleetwood, across to, I don't know, St. Michael's Microlight maybe, and then down to Middlebrook Stadium here. And then from there, I don't know, we might go to, say, Ashcroft Farm, for example.
No.
So, no, are you banned? Most people in some shape or form are banned from Ashcroft Farm. And if you think, oh, what's he talking about there? Have a look at Ashcroft Farm's website, and it requires no further investigation whatsoever. So maybe
Jen's on it already. Look at her.
Sorry, what's that? I missed that.
I say Jen's on it already. You can see her typing it in.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's like I say, all you gotta do is just have a look at the Ashcroft Farm website, and you think, what? Now I've lost. Yeah, well, yes, I'll say no more. Sorry, I was just trying to find something else. There we go, that's better. So we won't go to Ashcroft, we'll go somewhere else. Say, for example, we might go over to Huddersfield here, but you got 5 minutes to draw it on the chart. So draw a few lines on the chart. Then after that, we give you a route brief, a frequency card, and the aid memoir. And the route brief would look like this if you went to Ashcroft Farm. It's got room for you to write the call sign you want to use, the type you want to use, got a few details about yourself, what's open, what's closed, what the weather's like, just so you've got something that you might have used in cross countries. There'll be a list of frequencies, and you think, wow, there's a lot of frequencies here, but all you want to do is pull out ones that you're going to use. Well, if you were going to fly from Blackpool, for example, you would, in fact, saying this, I've messed up here because this is the southern frequency chart. But let's say, for example, if you were going to go from Slape, well, you got the frequency for Slape. If you were then going to talk to Shawbury radar, you've got the frequency for Shawbury radar there. If you might by chance be going to talk to Liverpool radar, you got the frequency for Liverpool radar. And if you were going to end up landing at Welshpool, you've got the frequency for Welsh Pool. So I don't know where we're going to go. We'll just choose the route to fit everything in. So we'll decide on the day what your route is going to be. So you got a frequency chart, and you can pull out the frequencies you need from there. And then also you'll have your aide-memoire, which is this, and it doesn't give you that much information. It gives your initial call, your partial message call, the position report, call sign position, time, level, next position, and ETA, and the items required for a Mayday or a pan call. So it doesn't give the items required for a QTE. It doesn't give the items required for a relay Mayday, but it just gives you a few items here that you can use. Kelvin asked, is there a minimum level of complexity required for the route? And in a way, that's the answer. We'll go for the minimum level of complexity. What I want to examine is your RT rather than your navigation or your air law or your meteorology. It's more to do with the RT. Imagine what we've been through the last couple of weeks, then just placed on a map where similar things happen. So you're provided with those items. We have a chat about the route, and we discuss what would happen if you gave a relay Mayday, what would happen if you gave a PAN call, a QTE call. And I can't give you any scenarios that we haven't talked about beforehand. And you'll have the opportunity to ask questions, check understanding, and you can see why it takes so long here. Yes, I like Kelvin's minimum complexity, take off from Dairy House Farm, land at Dairy House Farm, and do a few circuits. Well, that would be boring. I know that, you know, you wouldn't want to do that because that's far too easy. And that certainly really is the minimum level of complexity. We need to fit a relay Mayday. We need to fit a PAN call in. We need to fit a QT, but it's not there to be tricky. It's there just to give you a bit more distance, cruising along. Whoops, didn't need to do that or that. So we have a verbal briefing of the route. Then you've got 20 minutes preparation. You can write down whatever you like. So you can scribble down anything, but don't try and write a script because that never works. Look at the partial message calls. Look at the frequencies you're going to use. Look at position reports. And just look at the map, really. See where a mass penetration might occur. And then we speak our way through. And it's recorded, so not recorded so we can play it back at the Cheshire Flyers Christmas party, but recorded just in case you appeal that you've passed. If I tell you you've passed and you think, no, I don't think that was good enough, I'm going to appeal about that result. I'm sure I failed. You can appeal to the CAA and they'll ask for the recording, and that they can sort of see whether you passed or whether you failed. It's deleted after 30 days. So it's just there, just in case there's any sort of quarrel about it at all. And it's not released at all, it's just kept on the recorder, just in case the CA asks for it. And that test takes about 20 to 30 minutes to go through. Then I ask you some questions only on things that we've done in the course, hopefully relatively simple questions that weren't asked on the multiple choice paper. See how you go with that. It's not half as bad as you think. Then I tell you what the score was. I can't give you a mark, it's just pass or fail. We have a chat about any sort of issues we need to talk about. And then we fill in your application form and fill in your multiple choice exam details, fill in your practical test details, and as far as the CAA seem to be concerned, fill in the fact that you're competent to English language proficiency level 6, which basically means that you talk English as your primary language. So, well, I'll fill in the form for you, but this is the form that you use along with your authorized identity to apply for your FRTOL license. And then finally, once you've passed, I need to give you a 5-minute presentation on the use of radio to avoid infringement. So the CAA insists that everybody that passes a FRTOL exam has to have a 5-minute presentation on the use of radio in the avoidance of airspace infringements. And that's it. So that's the exam. You think, whoa, blimey, there's a lot there. Well, most of it is admin and just sorting things out. And we're going to talk, when we meet for a couple of hours, we'll talk about this again. So you'll know exactly what's expected of you. The stuff in blue isn't the exam. The stuff in black is the exam. But really, it's just transferring what we've been through the last couple of weeks onto a map. And so therefore, what that means is when we give our position, we can give our position in relation to, say, Garstang Marina here, or St Michael's, or Wigan, or Middlebrook Stadium. We've got actual places that we can imagine flying along. Don't worry too much about all the controlled airspace and everything around. It's just so that it feels more real as we go round the route. But it's just talking our way round exactly the same as that virtual route. So for example, for Blackpool, we just do the same thing as we would do at Blackwood. I don't know what runway is at Blackpool. I don't know what the air traffic procedures are. Anywhere we take off or land will just be generic procedures, just as we've done today. And Michael says, any specific revision ahead of a practical test I can recommend? Nothing. You've done it. You've done the 5-week course, and we're going to have a couple of hours of one-to-one. That couple of hours one-to-one is revision. It's brush up, really, to look at all the phraseology again that we've been through the last couple of weeks. And I know you look at it and you think, oh, bloody hell, I don't fancy this. It's not half as bad as you think. And I shall guide you through over the couple of hours of preparation to get you to a point where you shouldn't have any problems at all. And that, ladies and gents, is it. So what do we do now? Well, if you haven't done the multiple choice exam, I'll resend you the availability for that. If you've done the multiple choice exam, I'll send you availability for our 2 hours virtual stuff, and it can be in an evening, a weekday, a weekend, whatever works best for you. And then once you've done the 2 hours one-to-one via Zoom, I'll send you my availability to do the actual exam, and then you get it done. One final thing to say is that when you apply for your license, unless you want to spend more money than you need to, you apply for your license when you apply for your PPL. Because if you apply for your FRTOL at the same time as your PPL, or after you've applied for your PPL, your FRTOL is issued free of charge. So there's no CAA cost to issue your radiotelephony license. But if you apply for your radio telephony license before you finish your PPL, you have to pay the CAA an issuing fee of £79. So it's pointless spending £79 because these exams are valid for 24 months, and I'm sure you'll finish your PPL in 24 months. So once you've passed the exams, just keep all your paperwork safe and apply for your FRTOL at the same time, or in fact, just after you've applied for your NPPL. But more about that again when we meet on a one-to-one basis. So that's it, guys. That is it. Totally finished. Well done. Some fantastic RT. And think where you come from when we started to where we are now. So a big sort of well done to you. We'll call it a night now. I'll send you my availability tomorrow, and I'll look forward to seeing you on a sort of 2-hour one-to-one session, and we'll move forward to get your practical test completed and get you fully sorted. So before anything else, any questions at all, guys?
No questions, Kevin, but as a refresher course, that was brilliant. I really enjoyed it, i.e. no pressure about a test at the end, but
isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? And in fact, Alan, mind you, Alan hasn't done the test, but Alan's come for a refresher as well from doing the course before. But for you, Steve, yeah, it must be great that you can watch this for 5 weeks and interact, and you haven't got to worry a test. But saying that, Steve, what's your advice for everyone else in relation to the test? And please don't say, oh, it was bloody horrendous sort of thing. You give some nice words. Oh, it was
I think
fine.
the biggest thing you could say there is just take your time, don't rush it. It's not a race. If anything, you're flying the slowest plane possible around that route, and just take your time doing it.
And that's perfect advice, because that is so true. Don't rush it. You've got loads of thinking time as you go along. Perfect advice, Steve. So that's great.
If I can pass it, anyone can.
Well, there you go. There you go. So no, that's great. It's nice to see you guys. I'll look forward to seeing you in due course, but I'll say farewell for now. So thanks again.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Bye.
Thanks, Kevin. Take care, everyone.
Cheers. See you